That was one of the most amount of difficulties we've had setting up a thing in a long time.
All right, so listeners, sorry to bring you behind baseball, but so what happened is that sometimes Zencastr, the program that we pay for to record this thing, decided to introduce a 1 to 3 second lag. We tried rebooting and restarting and all of that.
1 to 3, he says. It was like, on my end, it was like 6 to 20.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it was. Yeah. I had this problem on 10,000 Losses with Kate Wagner, but yeah, so thanks for providing a service that sucks ass. I love the future.
This is the opposite of an ad read.
Future.
Right? Yeah.
I'm doing an anti-ad read. Yeah. What's up, Spotify? I still haven't responded to those emails, have I? No, I haven't.
Oh, it's a bonus episode. We're hopefully in under the line of getting this out in April, because once again we have had to like rapidly change our plans. We're scrambling. This is what happens when the guest falls through for perfectly good reasons, but you have to record an episode at short notice. I wrote this one, and I'll be honest, boys, there's nothing to this. This is me vamping. You're gonna hear me vamp for 29 slides and however long it takes.
That's fine. Let's bang this out. I got a wedding stroll to be at in an hour and a half. So.
Oh God.
What is a what?
A wedding stroll. I gotta go to a wedding stroll.
What is a wedding stroll?
What is a wedding?
Vendor. There's vendors, right? And then I go and I pitter patter amongst them, and they tell me, here are our wildly overpriced trinkets and things for your wedding. Please write us a check for $7,800. And because I'm stupid and also desperately wish to make my fiance happy and will spend any amount of money to do so, here I give them checks. So thank you, patrons, for funding my wedding.
We had the cheapest possible wedding at a registry office. It was like Vegas. It was great.
So my thing is, I've actually always wanted sort of, I don't know if you know this, Alice, but I have a flair for the dramatic, right?
Oh, sure. And you want your princess moment. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I want my princess moment. I don't feel shame in saying that. I know that I'm getting some judgment, from some people like, oh, why are you doing that? That's not the way we did it. To which I say, blow me. I want to feel like a pretty, pretty princess.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it wasn't like super important to me. And also we didn't have the money or time. So I didn't like, our wedding was like remarkably bureaucratic and fast, and like, it was good though.
It's a good way to get married. Wedding.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you both like civil weddings in Britain. You sign a thing together, and it's like, okay, you're married now. Fuck off.
I think there should be like lots more paperwork for a Kafkaesque wedding.
Oh, like an hour.
Yeah. There's the machine
in triplicate.
You find out you're actually married to the registrar at the end of it.
Yeah, there's a machine that carves your vows into your back.
Oh, Jesus, man. Yeah, I am going to get Corinne the fairy tale wedding she's always dreamed of, and that I'm always dreamed of, except for my Scotch fountain, which the venue will not let me have due to, quote, safety concerns.
I mean, bloody woke culture. Anyway.
Yeah, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm being canceled by big wedding venue because they won't let me have a fountain that rains down Scotch
into people's eyes, like directly. The eye wash stations also filled with Scotch.
Yes.
You try and bang on the doors. Behind the doors, giant wall of Scotch waiting to like burst in.
The elevator opens and the Scotch
slots
like The Shining,
like Titanic. Yeah. Oh yeah, The Shining. Yeah. I will say, one of the things that's very funny to me is I do intend to, for the people in the wedding party, of which Roz is, Roz, we're gonna do one of those F1 champagne celebrations on the front steps.
Oh, nice.
We're gonna buy goggles for the wedding party. I don't actually know if they'll let us do this, but at that point we'll be being kicked out of the venue anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm ever gonna see that deposit again, right?
They can't threaten you with anything. Yeah. And you're already married at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when I wore a Bad Religion Fuck Armageddon This Is Hell shirt to my graduation, and I took it off immediately after I had received my diploma, my robe, not the shirt. and I got yelled at, and I was like, I'm physically holding it in my hands. Like, you can do nothing to me now.
Yeah, what are they going to do? Take the ring back off your finger? I don't think so.
Yeah. Hey, buddy. But I know it felt good to be married, but now you got to go to jail.
But so we're going to talk about an aviation disaster for this week's
ask me about our flight home from New Orleans.
Oh, my God.
And it's better if you haven't seen any of the title or the title card of this video and you don't know anything, and possibly if we describe it in as vague as terms as possible, because it's an aviation disaster, and what it transpires to be, I think it's best if it's a sort of a building horror.
Yes.
So first, we must ask ourselves, next slide please, what's the deal?
What's the deal
do it at both.
with airline food?
I can confirm that Roz does not have a 17-year-old girlfriend.
It was more of a Cuomo.
Yeah, I was trying to do a Cuomo actually on that.
Well, you still don't have a 17-year-old girlfriend.
Andrew Cuomo's sitcom Cuomo.
Right after Heil, honey, I'm home.
That's right. Next slide, please. So, a potted history of airline food, largely copied from the Wikipedia article Airline Meal.
Well, I put a couple things in here, actually.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So,
please.
Yes. So, for a long time, serving food on moving vehicles has always been like difficult. Right. So like back in the day, you had stagecoaches. Those are some of the earliest like scheduled passenger transport between places. They would stop at inns. Right. And you would eat there because, the horse has a limited amount of horse in it. It has to stop too. Right.
What?
So, serving meals is difficult. It's easy on ships where there's a lot of space.
Ross, can I ask you a question? Can I ask just real quick? You know that Donald Trump weird conspiracy theory where he believes that your body only has like a certain amount of energy before you die?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you also believe that?
No, but I'm saying you can't run the horse all day and night. The horse has to stop.
The horse, difficult to eat on horseback as well.
Yeah. The horse can't eat while it's
trying to cook beans. God damn it!
The vehicles just aren't big enough, right? You don't have like the facilities in a stagecoach where you can reasonably store a meal and eat it for later.
You're cooking out back.
Yeah.
Actually, this is an open question, and I present it to the viewer. Cooking on Zeppelins, because that's the largest form of transport after ships for a while, right? You have to figure they were cooking in there, but on the other hand, imagine sparking up the gas stove in the fucking.
They did have a galley on Zeppelins, yes. On
enjoy
ships,
some delicious Nazi sauerkraut or whatever.
Exactly. Big sausages.
You mean Liberty cabbage?
Yeah. So your stagecoaches did not have meals on board. Your ships had meals on board because it's easy to put a galley in that. There's a lot of space on a ship. Railroads did not have meals on board. Initially, the train would stop at something called an eating house that would be next to a water stop for the steam locomotive, right? And they'd say, all right, everyone off, go eat in 5 minutes and come back, right? And
really leaning into the iron horse thing. You gotta feed the steam engine too.
Yes, exactly. So everyone sort of crammed as much food as they could in that short period of time and then got back on the train. Usually the food was pretty bad because, this is sort of the 1870s, 1880s. There's no refrigeration or anything. Well, you're eating stale, rancid bacon and shit like that.
But also you believe that if you eat it on the move, your stomach will explode.
That's also true, yeah. By the 1880s, we start seeing these things called dining cars. They have a little kitchen on board, right? They start becoming more and more common, though the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad kept contracting with the Eating House Company, the Fred Harvey Company, until the 1930s. Eventually, it becomes practical to throw the whole kitchen on the train. You get mechanical refrigeration. You get all this other stuff. It becomes much more practical to serve these meals on board, much more hygienic. And eventually even luxurious, right? So this is all really good for trains. But then we invent this horrible thing called the airplane, right? Yes. All this stuff becomes much more difficult again on the airplane.
because an airplane is much smaller. As you can see here by the fact that these are children. This is child labor on these slides. We have two, and they called them this, cabin boys of Daimler Airway, which is one of the things that got consolidated into British Airways. And these were the first like cabin crew, as we would now understand them, the first stewards, and also sold the first food that you could like eat on a plane, which is like lunch boxes with cold sandwiches in them.
And coal and coal sandwiches.
Yeah,
coal
exactly.
Sandwiches.
A big sort of anthracite sandwich. And like part of their job was like to go to the market where the plane landed, source some like fruit and veg and like, cold chicken and whatever in order to make up these lunch boxes. And I mean, this is sort of how airline food is for the first, 20 like, well, actually no, because like airlines advance very quickly, but the first 10-15 years of airlines, it's like it maxes out at like you get a sack full of cold chicken.
You think they at least give you like chicken?
It's not. They just give you the chicken. You have to actually slaughter it yourself.
Well, you think at least you get like chicken salad, which is at least good when it's cold,
No, fuck you. You'll get nothing like it.
They also hadn't invented food that was good back then. And food that was good was invented in like 1995.
One thing that keeps cropping up is like cold fried chicken.
I have had cold fried chicken on purpose, like cold hot fried chicken, which is a mindfuck. And if done correctly, it's good. I assume that this was not done correctly.
It's sort of like picnic food.
Yeah.
And like, the other thing was for air sickness, which everybody had because no one was used to flying, and also these early planes are terrifying, was chewing gum. You might get like tea and coffee and like a thermos or something when those were invented, but like
Jesus
until then, like
Christ.
like an urn that was like insulated as best you could,
I would hope that I would at least get shitloads of like scotch.
I think you have to bring that.
Oh my God!
I'll bring it. I don't care.
It's like 1915. I should be able to get alcohol on the plane.
If it's
it adds weight, Roz. It adds raw. It adds. I don't listen. It adds Roz weight. That's not what I wanted.
But you can just like bring your sort of like cocaine eye drops, and your laudanum, and you can just have like a nice flight.
There's ghosts in my blood.
Yeah. Next slide, please. But airlines advance pretty quickly, and you get like flying boats, and this is, they're large enough that they can become quite luxurious, and particularly Pan Am is sort of the leader in this.
This doesn't look luxurious.
I mean,
it does
it's
relative to the time. Yeah, you're not wrong.
This is the dining room on a Boeing 314 Clipper, and these sort of like long haul flying boat routes. The flying boats themselves got bigger and bigger, and so you could have like staterooms, and it was very much like along the boat model rather than the flying model.
It's got a bulkhead and everything,
Yeah,
it's got square windows.
If you go to the next slide, you can see like a Wes Anderson ass.
The windows will be blown out, much like your rectum will be blown out from this food.
Yeah, and like. This
I took a gnarly shit in a Home Depot earlier today.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah, I just wanted to annoy you. Yeah, go ahead.
It's fine. This is like a luxury thing, though.
Was it in a working toilet or display toilet?
The display toilet.
Horrible. So
I love this diagram. I love this.
I know it's really cool, right? It's like the Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, but like the food is consommes and like julienne shit. It's like a luxury thing, and it's a luxury treat on the very high end of passenger aviation, the same way that now like a first class seat in Emirates comes with a free eagle.
What are we talking about in terms of passenger capacity versus like crew?
Ooh, let me just Google that up for you right quick.
No problem.
Just I'll leave the mechanical typing sound in. Boeing 314.
Oh, I see. Capacity for 77 daytime passengers as the 314A.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So It's a giant
so
boat.
So it's a giant boat rather than a plane, really. It's a boat that happens to be able to fly.
I like this guy in the engine here. Is there like a walkway to the engine? Like, how does that work?
I think honestly there may have been, but he's just hanging out in there doing the
trying to get a
big
smoke.
radials.
Just trying to get a smoke, you know. This is cool. One of the things I noticed. Well, obviously there's many indignities to flying now.
Yes.
Just even though we're people hated Roz because he told the truth about flying.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are like, oh, Roz bitches too much about flying, you have not been on an airplane with him.
I just want to say I took United Airlines first class last week, and that should be the minimum standard for what flying is. And then I was forced into steerage with Liam and Derek on the way back on the worst flight I've taken in my life.
I don't know that you were forced. I don't know that you were forced.
I was forced into steerage.
You could have taken the flight the next day. You chose of your own volition not to.
I had
at no point did I. At no point was a gun brandished. At no point were you taken hostage. You were always able to leave whenever you wanted.
No, because
I'm sorry that you didn't get to fly first class both ways.
All I can say is...
He got a refund for $8. Did you sort that out yet?
I have not sorted that out yet. I need to figure out how to get United to suck my dick. One of the things I just want to say is that if Newark Airport has been closed due to bad weather, you will also have an unpleasant time flying into Philadelphia Airport at the same time.
It was fun.
It was not fine.
It was fun.
Did you experience some turbulence while you were back in steerage?
Well, we were also the last row, so we were really feeling it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right in the arse end. Okay.
Yeah. We were. Yeah, and all I could see was like Derek trying to comfort Roz kind of in vain.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm 4 seats over. Like that motherfucker's on his own.
Yeah.
Like a Revolutionary War painting.
They should let us smoke on planes again.
All I can say is that, like, I almost had this moment where I could tolerate air travel, and then it was all brought back into focus by that flight. No, airlines should be eliminated.
I can segue back to the thing here by saying, you know who else had a horrible time on airplanes against their will? Yeah. It was a shitload of dudes in World War II because they had to fly places, and they got hungry, and they're not flying them in these big fucking flying boats that have, if you know, a galley with like a guy in a chef's hat in it. They're flying them in like Dakotas and shit. Which leads to...
Yeah, what's the meal plan on a B-29? Let's find out.
Yeah, next slide, please. I don't think they have these on B-29s, but this is... this guy, William Maxon, invents, and I feel like I should do like the way of the future voice here, the Sky Plate, also known as the Strato Meal, because the Naval Air Transport
Strato-Meal.
Sick name, to be fair. I do like that the food, it's a black and white photo, so the food that I assume is brown and gray is now uniformly gray. Yeah.
He does this for the Naval Air Transport Service because they're like, we want to give these poor fuckers who are in like a transport plane a hot meal. And then he carries it over to Pan Am when the war ends. And what it is it's a prepackaged thing of like 1 meat, 2 vegetables in a 3-part paper fiber dish. And then you make that, you freeze it in bulk. And then you take it onto the plane and you reheat it at will in Maxon's Whirlwind, which is
the fabulous Maxon's Whirlwind.
this little like cabinet, this like 6-dish tall 24-volt DC electric oven for 15 minutes.
You've invented the TV dinner.
Yes, literally yes.
This is also a easy bake oven.
It's like warmed over a light bulb, more or less, and you get like fucking whatever horrifying food you got in the 1940s, Salisbury steak or whatever, lightly warmed. Like this is what airline food is like. That's the model for a long time. Is it's a tray and you reheat it. It still basically is. This is also a key component in the invention of the TV dinner. But
I really should learn to read the notes. I
wouldn't worry about it. They're put together very hastily.
I have more, since we got to fill this one out.
Oh, please.
I actually think first class should be banned at this point. If I see one more video of the points guy being like, "Oh, this is what Air France gets you. Oh, they pick your luggage up at the gate," I'm gonna.
I have a theory.
Sorry.
I have a theory about this. My theory about this is that first class should be allotted in a sort of like random chance basis to people from economy, and then anyone who actually booked first class doesn't get to fly. So I think
okay, yes,
you change nothing, and then each time you have I don't know, I don't even know what the percentages would be, like a 1 in 100, a 1 in 30, 1 in 50 chance of like getting an upgrade to first class. But they still have to do all of the same unsustainable first class bullshit where they give you the free Eagle, or like Lufthansa lets you do burnouts on the tarmac in a Mercedes or whatever the fuck it is. And yeah, that's just random.
They gave us champagne at the gate on United First Class, which is actually quite nice. I enjoyed that.
Did you get free drinks on the way down too? Like,
there were free drinks on the way down. I had like 2 Stellas, and it was even in a glass that was made of glass. It was really nice. The seats were nice and wide. The window is still very small because it's an Airbus. Which is miserable. My review of United First Class is it's slightly nicer than Amtrak Acela, but not as nice as Freccia Rossa Premium in Italy.
What you need as a Falk guy, as a fully automated luxury communism guy, is that you got to spend the big money, over $10,000 a flight or whatever for something like a transatlantic first class, where you're in there for 8 hours and they just give you like a little stateroom at this point, like a bed that folds all the way down and out and shit, and like, that's always fun to me.
But the emergency economy class ticket we bought on American on the way back was more than the United First Class ticket.
$444, baby.
Perverse incentives.
Yeah, it was fucked up. It was a fucked up flight. I will say that I have flown first class in American all of 2 times. Once because my fiance has the American credit card, and once because they offered me an upgrade to first class for like $30 flying back from Orlando once.
Bourgeois fuckers. I have never flown first class. I've flown business class. I don't fly, but like even I used to fly, and like I flew all the time when I was a kid, like unaccompanied. And
I would like to point out that I am made to fly because I am marrying into a Disney family, and I have to make the pilgrimage to the House of Moss.
You have to make the Hajj to Florida.
Yes. And then I have to sweat my fucking nuts off.
The other thing is that domestic flying.
It's just a mall. It's just a fucking mall you pay to go into. It's $150 a fucking day mall, and it doesn't include souvenirs, food, drinks, and you can't fucking get drinks at Magic Kingdom except with sit down service, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous. That is a crime against humanity. And when you go to one of the very few restaurants that offer alcohol in the Magic Kingdom, they side-eye you. They're just like, oh, like drinks for everyone at the table? And it's like, yeah, bitch, I just dropped $290 to breathe your fucking air. Let me get a fucking cocktail. It's fucking ridiculous.
So you're not feeling the enchantment.
Another thing to note here is that domestic flights to the United States are in a 2-class setup. So the first class is, I think, roughly equivalent to international business class.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta get this.
I've never done international first class where I just deplete all my reserves. So
me either.
I panic slightly less over 8 hours.
I have flown international. I've only ever flown international economy, but I will say when I went on Birthright, I was coming back from Israel. I was flying out of Tel Aviv, and a 6'1" fat man got stuck in a middle seat on the 12-hour flight back from Tel Aviv with 2+ hours on the tarmac. And I will say the flight attendant looked me in my eyes and said, do you want wine? And I did. And she fucking kept it coming, baby. We landed at like 5 a.m. and I was hosed. It was great. And then I got on a 6:15 a.m. Northeast Regional, still drunk as shit in Penn Station. And I was like, this is the greatest day of my life.
I'm assuming like LL First Class, the in-flight entertainment, just has a selection of videos of Palestinian teenagers just getting like shot in the face.
You get to murder the Palestinian teenager. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you have control of the drone.
Yes. Yeah.
What's the subject that's gotten us most sidetracked over the years of doing this podcast? You know what it is? Next slide, please. It's sandwiches.
Yeah,
we talk about sandwiches. Whenever there's a cheesesteak or something shows up, we got to talk about sandwiches. So we got to talk about a whole other war. We've done World War II. Now we got to get into a much bloodier conflict, the 1958 Sandwich War. I love this fucking story. I put this in barely relevant, but I put it in because I really enjoy it. So,
okay.
1958, the jet age is happening, and jet tickets are getting too expensive. Package holidays haven't been invented yet, and it's too expensive for people to fly in first. Business class kind of hasn't really been invented yet, and so the airlines have to invent economy class, which is initially called austerity class, which I think is more honest.
I kind of like that, yeah.
I actually prefer that. Don't lie to me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We're all in the economy, but only some of us are in austerity. But as we've mentioned before on air-related ones, airlines are incredibly, weirdly, tightly regulated until about the 70s when the airline industry is allowed to deregulate itself. And IATA, the International Air Travel Association, orders that in economy class, you can only serve coffee, tea, mineral water, and sandwiches. And then Europe sort of fights back. Swiss Air, in this fantastic case of malicious compliance, serves a full meal entirely in sandwich form.
God bless them.
Yep.
12 small finger appetizer sandwiches, a main course sandwich, and 2 dessert sandwiches.
I've never said this sentence before. God bless the Swiss.
Yep.
SAS, Scandinavian Air Systems, they do these open-faced sandwiches, very Scandinavian, but they sort of upsell them. They put stuff like ox tongue and asparagus on them. And this pisses off TWA and Pan Am so much that they appeal to IATA and have them issue a ruling on this. And I get 2 great quotes from this. First of all, I have a spokesman from Swiss Air who said, "Every man is entitled to his concept of a sandwich, and we have ours. The company will defend its sandwiches to the end."
I just love the idea of, yeah, right? Just a guy, you need to defend yourself against IATA. Welcome to the Glock sandwich. We take 2 pieces, right, of artisan bread, and then what we do is we put a Glock between them.
Unfortunately for civilization, though, the Americans fucking win. And
boo!
I know. The ruling is, and this is verbatim, a sandwich must be cold, simple, unadorned, and inexpensive, and must consist of a substantial and visible chunk of bread.
Suck me off. Suck me off. That's fucking horrible.
Any materials normally regarded as expensive or luxurious, such as smoked salmon, oysters, caviar.
That's
lobster.
anti-Semitic. That's anti-Semitic.
Yeah, I was about
what
to
am
say.
I supposed to do? That's anti-Semitic.
Game, asparagus, foie gras, as well as overgenerous or lavish helpings which affect the monetary value of the unit.
Eat shit.
So
Are prohibited.
according to American Airlines, not American Airlines, the airline, but American Airlines as airlines which are American, both pastrami sandwiches and lox are not a sandwich.
Yeah, I bet they're not, you fucking wasps. Isn't that convenient? Hey, Jew boy. Hey, we've replaced your train with a plane. Now you can fly to the camps and not get a good sandwich.
Oh, to really twist the knife, they fined Scandinavian Air Services $20,000 for calling American sandwiches rubbery indigestibles in an ad.
They are.
Yeah, that's accurate.
It doesn't matter. Truth is, the first casualty of like.
They hated SAS for saying the truth.
Yeah. That's
airline calls.
Fucking nail them up, why don't you dickheads?
And it stays this way for the next 10 years until they deregulate in the 70s, which is my next slide, where the airline industry just decides to get weird with it, because you can do whatever you want. You can set your own routes. You can compete with each other. You got the 747. You got, less impressively, but this is legitimately when this was invented, the little rolling cart to deliver meal trays is a 70s invention. And so airlines start like jazzing up their menus, working with chefs, trying to study why food tastes like nothing when you eat it on a plane, and like what to do about that. And the answers to those respectively are: you are stressed, there's noise, and there's thinner, staler, and drier air because you're breathing everybody's old farts and shit. And the way you combat it is by putting in more spice, more salt, and more sugar. But it gets like too much. Like, this is tableside carving. I want to say this is like Lufthansa. Cathay Pacific did a flaming baked Alaska, which I bet the pilots loved getting the smoke alarm things for.
Everyone was smoking though. It was fine. Don't worry about that.
Oh shit, you're right. Yeah, you can just light up a cigarette. It's fine. It barely even made a dent. Yeah.
Yeah.
But one country that existed during the 1970s, next slide please, was Japan, seen here in the 1970s. So what's Japan up to in the 70s, you may ask? Well, the golden 60s are over. The economy is fucked because the economy is happening, the oil crisis and everything. And so Japanese business is in this position where it has to do something, and the things that they do out of panic end up laying a lot of the groundwork for the economic boom of the 80s, like investing in miniaturization and like quartz wristwatches and shit. But if we're playing sort of a big game of civilization here, America has already won a cultural victory, right? We're all, wearing blue jeans.
You can't win a cultural victory if it's that big, though.
It's true. But one thing that remained extremely successful in Japan was, next slide, please, the Coca-Cola Company.
Oh, we love right-wing death squads.
Yeah.
What happens when you pay for every single sign on every single business everywhere?
Right-wing death squads?
And the right-wing death squads.
And the right-wing death squads, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, so Coke had established a Japanese affiliate in 1957. In 1962, they made a very wise business decision, which was to get into the vending machine business. Japan, at the time, then and to an extent now, loved vending machines, and this made them a shitload of money. They were bulletproof all the way through the 70s. Very, very successful. And so, it's a booming industry. The company's doing very, very well. And they decide, what we're going to do, we're going to do a competition to reward our guys. And so our salesmen, the executives decide, can enter into this competition. They're going to win European vacations. They're going to go to Paris. They can bring their families. They can bring their wives. And, it's going to be a great time. It's going to encourage people to sell more. And a lot of people enter. Some of them win. Next slide, please. On January 3rd, 1975.
Oh, boy.
So
Tokyo to Anchorage to Copenhagen to Paris. Yeah, might as well just kill me, man. I ain't doing that.
It has to do refueling stops. They haven't worked out how to make engines efficient yet. So in order to get from Tokyo to Paris,
it's also they didn't have ETOPS back then or whatever it's called. Your extended range thing where you can fly way out of the way of the airports. It
also has to dodge Soviet airspace.
Yes. Hold on.
Are you Googling what ETOP stands for? Because it stands for engines turn or passengers swim.
I was just making sure I wasn't confusing it with the British rail train classification system. Very similarly named.
Alice.
Yes. So,
Okay.
yes,
Thank
January
God.
3rd,
God
1975. No, I was waiting for you to like skip back to the beautiful JAL 747.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's nice. It's
Yeah.
nice. Again, I'm not flying from Tokyo to
Oh.
Anchorage to Copenhagen to Paris. I'd rather fucking kill myself. But
I like
I
like the crane on the tail. I like the sort of like tequila sunset like
yeah,
sheet
I mean,
line.
I like this. I like this livery.
It's a good looking plane. Yeah.
We don't have livery anymore that's good on any airplane.
No,
I actually don't mind Southwest by and large, but
I like.
I have a little rant here.
go for it.
Which is whenever they do anything, railroads, airlines, whenever anyone does like a throwback logo, sports teams, whenever they're like, oh, this is our old shit, check out our old livery, our old branding. I'm like, if it's good enough that you want to remind me of it, why didn't you keep it?
Yeah,
why don't
right.
just go back? Just keep it. Just keep the old shit. Just keep doing it. You know, we've been through like 50,000 Pepsi logos. You got it right the first time or second time, whatever. Just
See, also every single image inside of Penn Station.
Yes.
just leave it alone. Leave well enough alone. It doesn't need more. Design is a solved problem, right? It doesn't.
Yes.
If you want to design a new logo, have a new company. Don't fucking rebrand the old one. Nothing should change. That's my most right-wing point of view.
Yeah.
Keep old logos forever. Also, the other thing I like about the 747, like the bare metal sort of like unhoused engines just like hanging off that wing, which has no sort of end on it. I really enjoy that. But so this is flying Tokyo to Paris, refueling in Anchorage and Copenhagen. First leg, Anchorage, Tokyo to Anchorage, that goes fine. Second leg, Anchorage to Copenhagen. Next slide, please. And this is an actual photo of a 70s JAL interior, which I found. And it's 90 minutes out from Copenhagen, and it's breakfast time. Next slide, please. So breakfast is a ham omelet. This is not the actual omelet. This omelet is a blameless omelet from a different airline used for illustrative purposes only. I'm not even saying which airline. This omelet has been anonymized to protect the innocent. But this it gives you a sense. That's what a ham omelet looks like.
Yeah.
If you don't know.
Oh, this looks like a nice first class style omelet. You know.
Yeah. I mean,
you got the orange
it's an omelet.
juice,
You know, how
I can
bad
feel
can you
the
fuck it
grease
up?
off those potatoes.
You
I can
got,
tell you
you got
that.
something that looks vaguely. This is like an AI blended a bagel and a croissant here.
It's a crobagel.
Yeah.
you got miscellaneous juice. I hope it's apple.
Yeah. This is some fruit that I would eat begrudgingly.
Yeah, because you feel shamed by handing a full thing back to the steward.
I get it. You might as well just hang a sign onto me that says fatty. I get
it. Next slide, please.
Welcome to Well, There's Your Problem. It's a podcast about engineering disasters and also internal struggles with our weight.
Oh, we're struggling, boys. So we're pausing with like first forkful of ham omelet halfway to our mouth to ask, where does airline food come from? I
assume the trash factory.
It's from the catering
This is the
truck.
trash factory.
It comes from the catering truck, and it lifts
Ross
up.
is obsessed with for some reason.
It's a cute little truck.
You love a catering truck, man.
Ever since when I was a kid, I used to love all the little like accessory vehicles to a plane. You know, they all had their own thing going on. They had a clear sense of purpose, and I was like, one day I'll have one of those. I was wrong, but it doesn't matter.
I like everything about air travel except the air travel part of it.
This is the inside of the back of one of those catering trucks. This is so since the
systemization, a lot bigger on the inside than it is on the outside.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's roomy.
You got a sort of
snug,
a sort of TARDIS situation going on here.
Since we systematized what airline food was, like we talked about earlier, it's all made in these big industrial kitchens off-site, of which this is one. And specifically, these ham omelets were made at International In-Flight Catering, a 51% JAL-owned subsidiary in Anchorage. And you may notice that none of these guys are wearing like gloves or masks or hairnets or anything else, but people don't do that in restaurant kitchens, right? So it's fine. People just, it's fine. It's fine. Next slide, please.
Also worth noting here that Anchorage International Airport was a very, 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 very important airport back in the day because of all the refueling you had to do. Most trans-Pacific, a good number of trans-Pacific flights would stop there. It was just a good spot for going from various point A's to various point B's in the world if you had to stop to refuel.
Pacific Gander or, Shannon.
Yeah.
Yes, next slide, please. So these are some beautiful, cool purple marbles lying on a bed of blue sand.
Oh, these are some kind of radar installation, right?
Yes, and they're about to have a great time. These are Staphylococcus aureus, and they live in infected blisters on one chef's right index and middle fingers. But it's fine because they're too small for him to see. So he just puts bandages on them and he goes to work. And management is supposed to ask him if he feels sick, but they don't. And he doesn't. He thinks it's fine. Next slide, please. So he goes to work. And there's 3 chefs like these making 220 ham omelets. And because our guy... what are we calling this guy? We got to come up with a name for him.
What's like an Alaskan name? We need something that's Alaskan.
Let's I don't know, Will Rogers. Let's do Will
Rogers. Okay, so Will Rogers, because Will Rogers is a go-getter with a can-do attitude, he makes 112 ham omelets himself.
Oh, jeez.
That sounds great. I love making omelets. I really enjoy making that many omelets, I think.
Can you make me one of those omelets like we had in New Orleans with the tater tots in them?
I thought that had a little bit too much. Well,
I agree.
Do it.
No, it was a little overdone.
That was a little overdone, yeah.
Right. But can you make me an omelet with like that nice little hollandaise drizzle on top that I got?
That was not hollandaise. That was gravy.
Oh, sausage gravy.
Yeah, it was sausage gravy. Right. Yeah, which I also thought was kind of weird. I would have put something else on top of that. Anyway.
Anyway, so Will Rogers, he makes 112 of these omelets himself. And because he's goal-oriented and a team player, he helps them make. He loads the ham into another 108 omelets.
Right.
And we got 220 ham omelets going out, 112 plus 108. Every single one of those omelets has had Will Rogers has had his hands on it. And that's fine. Make all the omelets, goes well. And then they store all of the omelets in the kitchen at room temperature for 6 hours.
Yes.
I don't like this. I think that's going to ruin the flavor of the omelet.
It's great. It's great. Fuck you.
just like coagulating. Then they refrigerate them for another 14 and a half hours, but the refrigerator only goes down to 10 degrees Celsius.
What's that? Like that's like 80 degrees Fahrenheit, right?
Yeah, they cool them rather than refrigerating them, really.
Yeah, no, that's double it and add 30. That is 50?
20 plus 30, 50 Fahrenheit, yeah.
50. Yeah, it's fucking 50. Yeah, holy shit.
Boy.
50 degrees. They're just hanging out in the, and I put this in air quotes, refrigerator.
That's not a refrigerator.
14 and a half hours.
No. Oh, jeez.
And then they put them in the truck.
You are going to shit through your mouths.
They put them on the truck, and the truck loads them into the plane, and the plane keeps them at room temperature in the galleys for another 8 hours. Now, I should say, for the time, and to an extent now, the temperature is different, but in terms of the time your food waits for you to eat it on an airline, not unprecedented, probably not even unusual.
That makes sense, yeah.
That's one of the reasons why they like frozen food. But they didn't freeze this. They didn't even refrigerate this. They just kind of left it.
Why not just serve exclusively cured meats? That's probably the way to go here, is just lots of cured meats.
Famously
throw me some delicious cured meats.
curing stuff is a great way to avoid food health problems. That's why everyone gets the ceviche off of a taco truck. Next slide, please.
That's Ross likes to live dangerous.
So the cabin crew, they heat up all 220 omelets and they serve all 220 omelets to
this poor guy smiling. Oh, he doesn't know he's in for a world of hurt.
They're excited. They're excited. They're going to go to Paris, and they're almost in Copenhagen, which is cool. You can see Copenhagen out the window, I guess. And you're going to have breakfast.
I can hold Copenhagen in the palm of my hand.
Yeah, and you're going to have a nice European vacation. Next slide, please. I don't like that I use the evil voice to talk about this stuff, but let's talk about Staphylococcus aureus again, because Staphylococcus aureus is having the time of its life in these omelets. And one of the things that Staphylococcus aureus does is it grows, it reproduces, it digests stuff in the omelets, and it secretes a wide variety of what we call exotoxins, because they're secreted as opposed to endotoxins, which just chill in the cell wall. And Staphylococcus aureus produces a shitload of exotoxins. Most of them are enterotoxins, which entero here means like intestinal. And these are, if we go to the next slide, these are proteins, although I'm not scared of them because they are folding the way they're supposed to. They're doing exactly what they should do. They're following the instructions, and this here is a staphylococcal enterotoxin. Now, what this guy does is it gets into your guts and it starts opening pores in the cell walls of your intestinal cells. And this does two things. First of all, it kills the cell. That's down the road. That's not a problem right now. The other problem is it makes them more permeable to chloride ions, which changes the osmotic concentration, like how much solute there is in the solution of all of the stuff that's in your guts, causing a lot of movement of like sodium and water very quickly, resulting in, next slide please, shitting and puking everywhere.
Yes, the shits. You got
the shits.
As Liam and I have so eloquently put it, butt plague.
Butt plague.
Butt plague.
Yeah. Butt plague.
And the thing about this specific butt
plague... It's funny
plague...
because you don't know which hole it's coming out of.
Well, no, I mean, it looks the same coming out the top as it does going out the bottom. That's the
sure
thing.
Does, buddy.
Sort of a slurry, And the key thing to note is that this is a fine distinction between exo and endotoxins. With an exotoxin, the onset is much more rapid than an endotoxic food poisoning. This isn't like a you feel sick the next morning situation. This is a you feel sick right now situation, like right then. Hours at most. On a plane. On a full plane.
A Boeing 747 plane. Quite a large plane.
364 souls aboard. Next slide, please. So, there is no actual hard limit on the number of toilets on any given passenger airframe. Manufacturers will put in as many or as few as the clients want. If you wanted, you could start an airline that's like no toilets, just hold it. In general, though,
oh no,
for an airline, you want a ratio of about 1 toilet to every 28 to 32 passengers. So if we open up our calculators here, 364 people aboard, be conservative, say 1 toilet for every 28 passengers, that's 13 toilets. Now, H hour plus 1, 196 passengers and 1 flight attendant are sick. There are 13 toilets.
No.
Copenhagen is a half an hour away.
Yeah.
Imagine if you're one of the 24 people who weren't sick. You're just looking at this chaos unfold.
Like, middle fingers up.
No, worst
Just
is you really have to piss.
Dude, go in the suit.
Next slide, please. So, I've put in an artist's impression of what I think that looks like. I mean, let's be real. It's like the end of Event Horizon in there.
I like the I like that this is one of our calling cards. It's just finding whichever
finding a Hieronymus Bosch
yeah,
painting.
yeah, exactly. Just slapping California housing policy across it.
I mean, the sole thread by which you can continue to believe in the actions of a merciful God is that this happened half an hour away from the airport instead of in the middle of the Atlantic. If this had happened, if this had been like the dinner service instead of the breakfast service, and you had like 8 hours each way, I mean, I don't think that bears thinking about. Because
I will say they probably would have landed the plane somewhere if that were the case. It would have been hard to find an airport in the Canadian
like the
Shield.
beginning of BioShock.
No. Oh, there's always a lighthouse, I say, as I rip my taint in two.
You had to land at fucking Alert or somewhere.
Congratulations, you live here now.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say there was a London to Dubai flight that turned back half an hour in, which meant they had to dump a shitload of fuel and everything because of one extremely smelly turd. Like, a dude took a shit in there, and they were like, "This is too much of a health and safety risk.
Too big of a shit.
Flying. Yeah, it's not big. Going, you know. Yeah, but like,
I'm sorry, sir.
Your
shit was too big.
I mean, this though, like a food poisoning thing with a kind of diarrhea that changes you as a person, and like 200 other people have it. There's like 300 people in there. You're all locked in together. All 364 of you are now locked together in a sacred, horrible, unholy bond. You have seen things you should never have seen. You have all shit and puked over each other.
I've been there.
An absolute nightmare scenario. Next slide, please. This is sort of like my nightmare level of social anxiety. Whenever anyone says return to you about air travel, I want you to picture this very tasteful 70s interior steeped in like liquid human fecal matter.
Okay, but consider it could be 3x3 seating. Steeped in even more liquid shit.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what you're complaining about. Derek and I didn't have a buddy between us. It was great. 3x3, except for our 2 in 3. So we would have had a whole seat to fill with our shit.
It would have actually been 3x4x3.
Corinne texted me, "How's recording going?" And I just have to explain, like, we're talking about shit and puke.
Yeah.
You're not going to listen to it anyway. It's all right.
No, horrible. One question you may be asking. Next slide, please.
How do you scoop out all the poop and puke?
Oh, that's one question. I think you have to burn the plane down. Sort of like
that's probably
PFLP
fair.
style. How are the pilots doing? And the answer is fine. They're just totally fine.
Did they just trucked it, or they didn't eat it?
No, they were fine, because in a very clean reproduction of the gag from the movie Airline about how the guy had lasagna instead of chicken or fish, they had the steak. No,
that's airplane, not airline.
Did I say airline?
You said airline. You wrote airline.
Did I? Yeah, I did. Fuck, Leslie Nielsen in Airline.
Yeah.
Yeah, but because they were still on Alaska time, so they had dinner instead of breakfast, and they had steaks. But pure chance. There was absolutely no guideline or regulation from anyone about them having different meals. And this is the bit that's going to fuck you up. There still isn't. Like no air authority mandates this. Airlines might require it, but like they don't say that. They don't want to tell you. It's, you know, if they have internal guidelines, they just don't want to share that. So it happened again. I am imagining having to wrestle a fully loaded 1970s wide body heavy airliner onto the tarmac while also shitting and puking.
Oh, could be worse.
At some point,
It's not a problem because you're not going to die by wire here. This is,
I guess you just said listen on the controls. Yeah,
if you puke onto the yolk, there's no problem.
Right. I figure like if you're Sully, can you imagine like, oh, sir, you like heroically put it down in the Hudson, no loss of life, and you come out of the cockpit just covered in shit and puke. I'd just be like, I feel great. Can you give me like 10, 20 minutes before we do an interview, please?
Is anyone got to change your clothes?
Just like a shirt. I really just need a shirt. Like, I always thought it'd be funny.
Please don't film me from the waist down.
If I ever do some sort of heroic rescue, and I end up, because I will end up puking in the middle of that heroic rescue, I'll be like, nah, film the vomit. I don't care. Just like local hero as I am clearly covered in my own fluids.
I mean, the pilots are the best off because they don't have to smell it. They've got oxygen masks. Like, they have their own sealed oxygen supply. And yeah, I mean, like, I feel like if you're just up there, you've had a lovely steak dinner. At some point, someone's got to tell you. Like, one of the cabin crew's got to get on the phone and tell you what's happening, and to try and convey in words.
We're now up to about 40. We're now up to about 7 inches of liquid on the floor.
Yeah, there's like a free surface effect risk at this point.
Yeah, you gotta worry about it. You don't want to descend too steeply, or you'll just submerge first class in the shit.
They're like, people are clawing at the like flimsy pre 9/11 cockpit door. They're trying to beat themselves to death out of shame on the seat rests. This is a horrifying experience. Next slide, please. But they land the plane is the main thing. They land the plane safely. And Denmark is not prepared for what's about to happen to it. Imagine being the ground crew who have to open the doors. Imagine
just walking. Those poor guys that American Airlines hires to clean the plane out, just walking in with NBCR suits.
I think at this point you probably have to remove all the interior furnishings from the plane. I think that's the only way you go from here.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of the moment you crack the door and the air hits you.
Are they going into a jetway or air stairs?
As I understand it, this is air stairs down to waiting ambulances.
I think air stairs is probably the better option here. I think because the passengers will be introduced to better ventilated air.
Yeah, you don't want to like soil the airport also. Yeah. The other thing is there is no radio explanation that will like prepare you for this, right? I don't think there's any sort of like request for assistance from a plane that's like, no, it's mostly full of shit at this point.
Yes.
And puke. Like, you don't believe that until it's happening, I think. But so the Danish authorities, they decant all 364 passengers out of this fucking nightmare. And like, I can't emphasize enough how serious food poisoning mostly isn't. Like, it's unpleasant, right? But it's self-limiting. You like keep people hydrated and resting for a couple of days.
Speaking of which, I'll be right back.
Nice.
I keep the recording going, right? I don't pause.
Please.
Yes, okay.
You don't. Okay. I'll just keep going. Yeah. Mostly people are just like fine. Like, you have a rough couple of days, but like, unless you're very old, very young, like have a compromised immune system, or you're like otherwise infirm. That's not to discount those as like, valuable populations or whatever, but like most people
are going to be fine. Yeah,
are going to be fine. Exactly. This, I don't know. Maybe it's just like by virtue of shame or the sort of like horror to which they've been exposed. They have to hospitalize 144 people.
I imagine they probably just do it as a precaution because they don't know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, apparently 30 of them come in critical condition, which I don't know what that means other than that you are like shitting yourself to death almost, like medically speaking.
Yeah, it's like, you're like actually raising out of your seat from the jet of shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was thinking more like a sort of a cumulative thing rather than like velocity, where you're like piled on top of it. But like, yeah.
Well, you gotta think, you got probably pretty nasty dehydration as well. You probably want to give people some IVs. You probably got a whole bunch of shit going on here.
As I understand it, and I'm open to correction on this, or indeed any of the science I've dredged up for this, what you're mostly doing in this case is like rehydrating people with IVs, maybe antiemetics.
There's a guy in there who's like me and a little too over enthusiastic about eggs. He ate it the quickest. He has the most dehydrated man on there.
Yeah, he looks like the guy at the end of like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Like he's fucking, all of the moisture has left that guy's body.
Yes.
He's like mostly sand at this point.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing is that like this is more people than Copenhagen hospitals have space going, which means that like one plane full of people having diarrhea would cripple any British city in 2023.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah, so like they have to treat like 53 people in temporary field hospitals. And I'm imagining the call to the Danish military that's like the emotional whiplash of
come here and wipe.
Yeah, we need all of your emergency medical capacity like immediately.
We're having like an 1850s problem. Everyone's got dysentery.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's not like a nuclear attack, there's not like a terrorist attack. It's a lot of people shitting horribly.
Yes.
Also, I should say none of the doctors speak Japanese. Very few of the people on the flight speak Danish, and in those days, way fewer Danish or Japanese people spoke English, so they don't necessarily have a common language. So they have to get staff from Japanese restaurants in to act as interpreters. But you know what? No one dies. Everyone successfully, horribly recovers from
bet they wish they had.
Yeah, from maybe the most traumatic experience you can have ever.
Pretty bad experience to have. Unless there was like really bad turbulence on the flight and all the poop was sloshing around.
Oh God. Next slide, please. Because I am slightly lying. One person does die. And this is Kenji Kuwabara, who is the vice president of International In-Flight Catering, who shoots himself in his Anchorage apartment out of shame. And
it's okay, man.
Yeah, I mean, Japan Airlines statement on it is like, that was weird. We don't know why he did that. We didn't we feel bad that he felt that he had to do that.
I was about to say it. I don't think it was his fault even. I don't think anyone could have reasonably predicted this given the standards of the time.
Yes. Yeah. And this is not like a much written about thing. There isn't like a memorial at the airport to this.
Yeah.
There's hardly any detail aside from like a couple of New York Times articles, and this would be a great focus on if anyone wants to do like some historical research. But also a complicating factor for that is that if I had been on this flight, I would carry that shit to my grave. I would never say a word to anyone.
Well, you wouldn't have. You would have expelled it in the airplane.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I would never need to shit again. Yeah. I
shat my brains out quite literally.
But no, I would like never disclose that fact to a single person. So what we do know about this is like largely the result of some interesting medical detective work by microbiologists in Copenhagen and the Alaska State Health Department and the CDC. In particular, shout out to a guy called Dr. Mickey Eisenberg at the US Public Health Service, who, in I think the most audacious piece of medical instruction I've ever seen, asked the group on their return flight, which, I mean, imagine the return flight. Imagine
just
the take-up rate on those
silence.
omelets. Yeah. Asked people to sit in their same seats and fill out a questionnaire about the food to try and map the link between illness and omelet. Which, yeah, I'm not having the omelet on the way back. No, thank you.
I'm hoping there was a different aircraft on the way back, though.
I really hope so.
I hope they weren't like, I had to go.
We kept the same one, motherfucker.
We don't even know which aircraft this was or like what they did to clean it.
I assume it would be a similar Japan Airlines 747, but hopefully not the same one. It depends on how long their vacation was. How long does it take to completely replace all the furnishings in a 747?
It's not. It's just poop.
It doesn't. No, and that kind of like moquette fabric that they were big into in the 70s. That doesn't wash.
Yeah, I was about to say it'd be a hell of a job to try and de-poop that aircraft.
Viscera cleanup detail DLC.
I was about
one of the
to
greatest
say,
games of all time.
There's no carpet in that game, is there?
No.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just mopping.
Yeah, that would be like that'd be the hard
to,
mode, is you have a lot of carpet in there.
Yeah, I really need to see like the sequel to that where you have to like steam vacuum.
Airplane manageable.
Yeah. But so, I mean, one thing you can do with bacteria sometimes, and particularly Staphylococcus, is you can like fingerprint it. And so they identify like the specific kind of bacteria, and they trace it all the way back to that one guy's fingers, Will Rogers' fingers. No word on what happens to Will Rogers. Never identified publicly. I think he probably gets fired, but like, I don't know. Damn
Even
near
then,
crashed.
He bandaged it up, though. He did everything the company policy did.
That's true.
Yes.
He all the same damn near crashed a 747 into the ocean.
Yes.
He didn't. And the pilots were fine.
His bacteria did. Next slide, please. This, as you might imagine, triggers a sea change in the airline catering industry. Because of this, it's a lot safer now. They make you wear gloves. They make you wear a mask. Airlines mostly introduce their own regulations about crew meals, but no one tells them to, no one makes them, and they don't have or want to tell anyone what they are. My note for this is, we often say safety regulations are written in blood. This is an example of safety regulations being written in poop.
Yes. Very faintly, because there's a lot of liquid in that poop.
Yeah. But I also enjoy the little catering truck. I find airline catering a weird, fascinating little industry. On the one hand, it's very clean. On the other, people do still get food poisoning on planes. The FDA only inspects those facilities every 3 to 5 years, where, like, for a restaurant, it's like every year. And like stuff always happens, but these days it's mostly norovirus. It's mostly from people like not sanitizing their hands and they're reheating it and stuff.
Learn to wipe.
Yeah, it doesn't even begin to compare to cruise ships, where it's, you know, much worse.
It's always extremely funny when that happens.
Oh yeah, the ship of poop. I mean, it's like this, but like longer. I mean, at least they have more bathrooms.
Yes, this is true.
But I will say that given approximately 3 billion people fly on airlines every second, as everything I read to try and get rid of my fear of flying reminds me, and this is a rarity, they must be doing it mostly right. And I have one other little slide, which is just a fun fact that I found. Next slide, please. Which is one of the kind of, to be honest, few like unambiguous success stories of vertical farming.
Probably
is
the
the
only
salads
success.
for airline food. Yeah. All of the like salads for like airlines, that's been grown in a like former steel mill in Newark, New Jersey, which has
we've been there.
Yeah,
has 390 acres of arable land on 1 acre of site, which I think is cool. I wish it worked for anything other than airline food. On the other hand, I think it ties in with a trend of like, you know, we're bringing back the class divisions of the sandwich wars. The sandwich wars are back, you know, where you read about, you know, anything about first class catering, and it's like, oh, we're working with like Michelin starred chefs. We're going to have like a tasting menu. And you get a beautiful little artistic plate. And then if you're flying in economy, you get like a pack of chips thrown at the back of your head. You know, like a JFK-like velocity.
I love spitting on you.
And next slide, please. That's the deal with airline food.
and
I
that's
put this together.
the deal
with airline food.
All right, bye.
We made it to an hour. I put this together in about as long. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for subscribing to the Patreon.
Yes, thank you for subscribing to the
Thank you.
Patreon and allowing me to take first class flights where I don't get food
I can't believe
poisoning.
you did that.
Yeah, it was less expensive than Amtrak.
Uh-huh.
See, half the price of Amtrak, in fact.
Aristocracy of labor strikes again.
Yes.
The next mainline episode, I don't know what that's going to be. The next bonus episode, we're going to finally try and talk about fashion. And
As it
see
turns
if we
out,
can't.
fashion is danger.
That's right. You think that fashion's your friend? Fashion's a stranger.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay. That was a podcast.
Yes, it was.